Welcome to this webinar on the non-revenue water reduction co-management program with a case study we will present today on Jamaica and the contract they implemented to reduce non-revenue water. In many water utilities in the region, as you know, it is very common to see very high levels of non-revenue water that can range from anywhere around 35% to 60% in some cases. It's well known and documented that high levels of non-revenue water are detrimental for the financial viability of water utilities, as well as to the quality of the water itself. The need to manage non-revenue water better and protect the precious water resources has become increasingly important. And non-revenue water management allows utilities to expand and improve the service, enhance their financial performance, but also make cities more attractive and increase climate resilience as well. I would like to welcome today our speakers who are going to present their perspectives on non-revenue water. And I will start with Therese Turner-Jones, who is the manager of the Caribbean Country Department. Therese has been the IDB's country representative for Jamaica since 2013 as well, and in 2017 she became the general manager of IDB's country department for the Caribbean group. She previously worked at the IMF for several years. We will continue with Mark Barnett, who is the president of NWC, the water utility of Jamaica. And then Jermaine Jackson, who also works at the National Water Commission on non-revenue water specifically. We will continue with Alvaro Ramallo, who works at NIA, Jamaica, and that spent a lot of time working on this contract. And then we will follow with several commentators, Sergio Campos, the division chief of the Water and Sanitation Division at the IDB, Joe Parker from the International Water Association, and finally, Mark Barker, a representative of WEX. Before we start, I would like to let you know that you can ask questions through the chat in the Zoom. All the questions that are not answered during this webinar will be answered at a later stage by email. There is also translation from English to Spanish for the Spanish speakers. And without further ado, I will give the floor to Therese. Therese, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Karine. I was waiting for this webinar to start, I was marveling at how the world changed and how differently we're working. And I want to welcome our 130 people and I see people also logging in from the United States and from Puerto Rico and all over. So welcome and thank you for being here with us for this important event today. I want to remind everyone that on Friday we will be celebrating World Environment Day. And yesterday I had the opportunity to speak at, to make a presentation at the University of the West Indies for a live event, well, not a live event, but a recorded event that's going live on Friday, talking about the intersection between COVID-19 and climate change. And in my presentation, I made the point that one of the pillars, policy pillars that's really important for sustainability as we confront these two, I call them beasts of challenges, would be water and sanitation. Of course, health is also in there, but water and sanitation really loom as two very important aspects of policy that need to be addressed and addressed with urgency throughout our region and continue to be addressed by all of you. just a little plug on what we've been doing with Jamaica and the IDB in general in Latin America and the Caribbean over its 60-year existence and over 50 years of partnership with Jamaica. And I'm very happy that we are doing this case study on National Water Commission because Mark Barnett and the NWC has been a fantastic partner with the IDB recently, but also we want to highlight that we've actually been working, of the 50 years, 30 of those years, we've been working on water and sanitation issues with the help of support of the bank's Water and Sanitation Division. Of course, water is crucial for life, and sanitation is also crucial for health. And so to make sure that we have proper water and sanitation, what we really need to see, and Karine did a really nice introduction just now, talking about non-revenue water, which is the focus of today's discussion. But we know that if utilities are being dragged down by high levels of non-revenue water, that's going to cripple their investment potential and the capacity to deliver clean water to everyone in the region on a consistent basis, without lock-offs, in spite of droughts and whatever the climate is pushing us to do. The bank has been working with NWC, as I mentioned, for a long time, on improving not just NWC's capacity and ability to deliver clean water and access to water in Jamaica, mostly in the Kingston and St. Andrew area, which is for the most part the metropolitan parts of Jamaica, but we also work on some rural plans as well. But our experience also dates back to working with the Office of Utilities Regulation, which is also an important aspect of proper utility management across the region. So I want to say our footprint in this sector, as well as working with the National Environmental and Planning Agency, NEPA, and the Forestry Department in restoring the Yalos watershed, which provides something like 60% of all of the water that is actually pumped out through the Kingston metropolitan area, is well known, and we've had a very good partnership. So we're very proud to be able to highlight today some of the work that NWC has been doing with us to reduce non-revenue water. And we hope that we can share those experiences with you to see how utilities around this region can either learn from what Jamaica has been doing, but also get some insights as to how, in general, the Caribbean can approach this pernicious issue of non-revenue water, whether it's coming through leaks because of poor infrastructure and lack of investment in infrastructure over many years, or whether it's coming through inaccurate metering or billing, or whether it's coming through theft. Non-revenue water is essentially robbing the rest of the economy of good access to water, and it's robbing utilities of communities to do a better job. As I mentioned, we have been working in this region for a long time. We have ongoing projects in Trinidad and Tobago and in Suriname, and previously in the Bahamas. So, this is we're not new to you, and you're new to us. So I just want to say again, thank you for being here. These are extraordinary times which require extraordinary measures. And so meeting in a Zoom webinar, which may be strange, but was strange to us perhaps 3 months ago, has become a norm, as most of us spend all day long in Zoom meetings or Teams meetings or WebEx meetings to continue the business of our operations. So thanks again for being here. I think today offers a really good opportunity to highlight these issues to the public. And having said we want to highlight these issues to the public, I forgot to welcome the media, because we have a representation from media across the region also with us. And we're hoping that through the media, we can create an awareness of the importance of this sector and how crucial it is for these issues to be addressed, not just by the utilities, but by every single citizen of the region. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Therese, for those welcoming remarks. And I would welcome now Mark Barnett, President of the National Water Commission of Jamaica. Mark is an accomplished engineer of extensive experience, specializing in water and wastewater. He has been with the National Water Commission for the past 23 years, managing both the technical and the commercial operations for water and wastewater services. And he was appointed president of NWC in August 2015. Mark, good morning, and you have the floor now. Thank you.
Good morning, Karina. Let me first welcome our fellow panelists and those who have joined us from across the region and across the world in general. I see invitees or members participating from Spain, and I think Austria may be there as well. But you could go to the first slide, please. My task this morning is going to be very simple. I leave the harder part of the work to those who are directly involved in the process. So I'm just going to briefly give an overview of NWC, but the overall presentation that you will be seeing this morning, and for those who are experiencing afternoon tea, would be NWC and the IDB partnership, the background to our co-management program, what were the project objectives, and as usual, every project has their issues and challenges, and is how do we work to overcome them, and where we are today, activities, updates, results under the arrangement. Next. Next. Okay, so you know, this slide really gives a little history to the NWC. It was established out of two utilities that were operating both in the urban centers and in the rural areas of Jamaica by an act of parliament. So we are an agency of government, and we fall directly under the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. And you wouldn't guess it, our minister is the Prime Minister. So we have a direct linkage to the Prime Minister as it relates to water, and I can understand the importance of water and its impact on national development. NWC is the main provider of water and wastewater services across the island, albeit we do have other players in the sector. We have minor water supply companies, as well as we do have those who operate and maintain small discrete storage systems. We operate on a daily basis over 1,000 facilities, and we span east to west, north to south. And asset under management is just over $1 billion. Our staff complement is roughly 2,000, and and that is just directly. We do have a contracting process where a lot of our work is contracted out. So there is a ripple effect in terms of our operation on the wider economy in terms of employment. The picture on the right just gives you the history of NWC, of water supply in Jamaica, and you wouldn't believe it that the town of Falmouth, which is on the north coast, had running water before New York. Just a little history. Next. Next. Right. So what are our daily operations? We operate in, as I indicated, all across the island, and we produce just about 180 million imperial gallons of water daily, serving both the domestic and commercial customers. But importantly, as this webinar is about our partnership with the IDB and its impact, or let's say our NRW program, I just want to highlight some of the activities and partnership that we would have undertaken with the IDB over the years. And on your screen, you would have seen Kingston Water and Sanitation Project of 2015, which was a loan plus NWC's contribution of over $50 million US. We embarked on an ambitious program in 2011 of a 133 million loan facility with the IDB. And in fact, that's a facility that is responsible in part for the activities that we are about to present to you and which is ongoing in Kingston and St. Andrew. And as Teresa had mentioned earlier, we would have undertaken various other IDB program and intervention in rural communities as a means of providing and improving access to potable water by those who would more likely or unlikely to see that access in the early future by virtue of their geographic location, really. We do embark on a number of institutional strengthening program as well as technical cooperation activities. In fact, just to highlight, the second of the two TCs is one which we are now pursuing a review of the NWC business model to make it more focused on the challenges that exist and how we can be more agile as a utility to garner the level of interest and, to ensure that we can, provide a level of service in the future as we seeing that customers are becoming more demanding for a particular level of service. And gone are the days when yard taps and stand posts were okay. These days, everyone need the supply within their house. So we have to actually change, and what level of investment is going to make that happen? Obviously, government singularly not going to be able to do that. So how do we adjust our business model to reflect that type of demand in service? Next. As I've demonstrated, part of our program is rehabilitation of some of our facilities. And this is just a simple photograph of some of the output of the intervention from the IDB over the years on the Kingston and St. Andrew KMA water supply improvement project. As was mentioned, we have the presentation in 3 segments. My co-presenters are Jermaine G. Jackson, and just by virtue of a quick introduction, Jermaine has over 12 years of experience within the Water Commission. In fact, he was the project manager on one of the other IDB funded projects. Jermaine currently is the project manager for the NWC under this co-management non-revenue water program. And he holds a BSc in mechanical engineer from the University of the West Indies and participated and gained various certificates in project management and financial and procurement. Now, Jermaine will take us through the background towards the whole co-management arrangement. And I must indicate to you initially that co-management as part of an NRW strategy for any utility was new for all of us, but NWC being a innovator in terms of looking at different project and the contracting model decided that this could be the most appropriate for us, considering our peculiarities and the need to ensure that we maintain active employment within our workforce, as well as to ensure that there is transfer of technology to those who will be entrusted to manage the network and the operations going forward after the arrangement. The second phase of the presentation will be done by Alvaro Romalo, sorry. And Alvaro came to the program sometime after the activities are started. We started in 2015 and he joined us later on in 2017. But Alvaro had various experiences in Southern Africa, Zambia, Mozambique, working with Viola as one of his, I want to say, pit stop in the water sector. Alvaro is currently now the country manager for MEA, and he is the man on the ground, as we would call it, and working through the issues jointly with NWC. And yes, we will do agree. We have our fights, we have our disagreement, and usually I become the referee in those situations, but that's part of the process of co-management. It's about bringing, I want to use it as a simple terminology. It's like a marriage. You two dated for a while, you court, you consummate the arrangement through a contract. But when you start to live together, you see all sorts of different things, and how do you resolve those? I am like the pastor who bring normalcy to the relationship to ensure that the objectives for which we started are stick to and we remain the focus of the activities. So I'm now going to turn over to our able Jermaine, who will take us through how we embarked and why we embarked on a co-management approach to our NRW activities. Jermaine.
All right, thank you, President. Next slide. All right, because I'm a background to the program, I just want to briefly highlight some of the efforts that the NWC had undertaken in the past with regards to non-revenue water reduction. In 1999, early 2000s, with financial assistance from the Japan Bank for International Corporation, the NWC embarked on a non-revenue water reduction program in the southern section of the island. In about 2005, we have also engaged an international partner to do a similar non-revenue water reduction exercise, but that is in the northwestern section of the country. And from these two initiatives, there are lessons learned. And as such, in 2015, and this was launched the KSA non-revenue water co-management reduction program, and for which we'll give more details in the presentation. Next slide. Now, with regards to non-revenue water reduction, we will all need to know where we are or where we were at the time. And as such, an audit was done of the Kingston and St. Andrew area or the project area. And this, what you're seeing on the screen, is a typical water balance of, the water supply system. Can move forward. What it is saying is that what we're injecting into the system, or the system input volume, is approximately 210 cubic meters per day. Can move forward again. Of that amount, approximately 84,000 cubic meters per day is billed to our customers. Now, what does that mean? It means that there's a loss, that we can move forward here, there's a loss of approximately 127,000 cubic meters per day. Now, for NWC, which is about 60% losses. Now, for NWC, that translates, and I'll show in the bottom of the slide as we move forward, that translated to about $4.5 million US per year in losses. Now, that is important. We need to ensure that we don't lose as much as that. Let's move to the next slide, please. Now, the approach with regards to non-revenue water reduction, we adopted the International Water Association methodology. Now, this approach is the term a holistic approach, where we aim to control both the physical and commercial losses. Now, there are various activities on the physical side and the commercial side of things. But the fact of the matter is, as utilities within the region, we all, on the operational side of things, we all conduct leak repairs, leak detection, pressure management, asset management. However, the key thing is that whenever we undertake these activities, it must be all interlinked. For example, when you're doing leak repair, we may only do leak repair for leaks that we see with our own eyes. However, there are leaks that we term as non-visible leaks, which is very important to reducing our loss. And as such, you need to have an active leakage control program in which you have leak technicians that go out and actually search for these non-visible leaks. And at the same time, now, when these leak technicians find the leaks, we have to ensure that we repair them in a timely manner. Similar effort needs to be taken place with regards to commercial side of things. You may have meters in your systems for 10, 15 years. Over time, these meters start to under-register. And as such, we have to have a system in place where we replace these meters so that we can ensure that we reduce the necessary losses. So therefore, NRW reduction is a holistic approach in which there needs to be unification between all the relevant activities on both the physical and commercial side of things. Can move to the next slide. Now, just as a background to the project area, which is Kingston St. Andrew, KSA has a population of about 700,000 persons, which is actually a quarter of Jamaica's population. Service accounts at NWC has about 115,000. and the pipe water population in the case is over 90%. Now, the network, that is the water supply network in the Kingston and St. Andrew, it's an old and aged network, and it has various type of materials, cast iron, ductile iron, PVC pipes. And just to mention that whenever you're undertaking a non-revenue water reduction program, you have to ensure that you have the financing in place. And as mentioned from the president of NWC as well as Therese Turner-Jones from IDB, we were fortunate to have received a loan from the IDB for which 50 million of it was designated for this non-revenue water reduction program. Can move to the next slide. Now, as a background to the NRW program in KSA, the question is, why is it that we use this co-management approach? Well, for one, the NRW initiative that we have taken in the past, you find that it is not sustained after the contractor depart. Can move on. Also, with regards to sustainability, you have to have adequate involvement of NWC staff. Continue moving, please. And of course, it's important to have exposure to international best practice so that we can benefit from a wider spectrum and water technologies. Now, what is this co-management approach? The president alluded to a marriage in his earlier presentation. But that is exactly what it is. It is somewhat of a marriage between NWC and our co-management partner, MIA. So what is this approach? Can move forward, please? So this approach is in effect that there's a common project team that execute this program. MIA Water, they have brought their team of specialists, and what you find that the NWC are involved from day one. They have our senior management staff are actively involved, and there's a sharing process in place. With regards to the activities for leak detection, leak repairs, as well as GIS work, our NWC operational staff are also involved. Important for this non-revenue water or co-management approach is this co-management responsibility matrix, which highlights the roles and responsibilities of all the parties to this contract. Now, for effective oversight of this program, there's a steering committee, and it is important, and I need to mention that this steering committee is chaired by the NWC president, Mark Barnett. Now, that is important because important decisions for the organization can be made, as well as it shows that there's that executive level buy-in from the company. So that is something important with regards to carrying out this non-revenue water reduction initiative. It has to be something that is buying from the top level. Next slide, please. Now, what are the objectives of this non-revenue water reduction program? Move forward, please. Well, the primary objective is sustainability. So it is to establish a sustainable non-revenue water management capability within the NWC, as well as achieve relevant targets and objectives. Secondary objectives, as indicated, there's the reduction of the non-revenue water to about 30%. Of course, we need to maximize on the income collected. With regards to, we also have to prepare and implement strategies and action plans to ensure that we have sustainability. Can move to the next slide. Now, this slide effectively summarizes the phase and planning for execution of this program. Well, phase one, as mentioned, is the preparation and audit phase. This is where the water balance was done of the network. Strategy and action plan was prepared. So having done the water balance and assess the condition of the network and the situation within the KSA, a strategy and action plan was developed accordingly. And of course, we have training plan and all that. All those strategies were developed. For phase two now, which is the execution phase, this is where all the action takes place. So the training program, a number of training programs were conducted, leak detection activities, leak repair activities, meter replacement activities, necessary pressure management, establishment of pressure zones, DMAs, all of these activities took place under the execution or phase two. Now, with regards to phase three is what we term the consolidation phase. Now, this is where it is the start of that sustainability where NWC start to take over more duties with regard to NRW reduction. And the assistance from MIA is somewhat limited at that time. Yes, what we term I have used before, shadowing process, where we have persons who essentially they are able to learn and pull on the experience of the specialists that are provided by MIA. And now for phase 4 sustainability, now this is where NWC takes on full responsibility. And MIA pull back, their role is just a matter of advisory and support to the program. Now, that is in essence a background to the KSA NRW program. Alvaro Marlo from MIA, he will go on into some of the findings, the issues, and the activities that we have undertaken.
Bon dia, good morning. Now on the NRW program, let's see the main issues and challenges that we face at the initial stage. The water network has been a big challenge for us in the initial phase. We identified that the GIS was not up to standards, and we were together finding in this marriage a solution for it. It was the initial stage of the marriage, and we went to the ground to excavate and dig and find the buried and throttle valves and the many anomalies that the system was reproducing for years of mismanagement. These allow us to have a good, stable position to build the next phases, which was first the hydraulic model, and finally the establishment of the PZs and the MAs. Another big challenge in our marriage, again, was the social challenging areas. We knew that these areas, which are the poor downtown areas of Kingston, had a big commercial losses problem. But the size of it was something that was the challenge to find. So we embarked in a social study to identify all of these zones, quantify the number of customers and consumers and illegals that were inside, and that allow us to understand better what was the challenge and what were the methodologies to develop. This is the detail of this problem. So the social challenging areas have a problem of accessibility. Sometimes are volatile, and there is some violence, so which doesn't allow daily activities as a normal zone. Also, the lack of information from the ground in terms of GIS, or even the pipe laid that is implemented, which is serving that area, also doesn't allow a proper hydraulic distribution. So all the studies of the hydraulical studies, the social studies, and the solution that was pointed out for the metering of these areas was discussed in this marriage by both parties, and we embarked in the implementation of it, which we will discuss further. Now let's talk about the activities and updates. The first activity, as Jermaine was saying, was training, because this format, unique format, and challenging format of co-management obliged to bring up to speed quickly the teams of NWC, which is the plumbers, the drivers, and all the team leaders that were associated with the field work. So we need to train the leak detection crew, we need to train all the stuff related with the leak repairs, and we also had a high-level training to implement and bring all the software for NWC. So we get acquainted with Collector, with HWM Alma, with NetBase and VT SCADA, to bring everybody up to speed of what was the level of implementation that we wanted, which is the best practice and the state-of-the-art equipments to this program. More than 350 people were trained, although today they work 200 people on the ground every day. And we also made local partnerships with Jamaican institutions to leave the knowledge in place, and to be possible NWC to form and to prepare more people in the future. From the IWA methodology, of course, with obvious adjustments to the local contingencies of the Jamaica and the Caribbean situation, we have been training and preparing the leak detection team with the normal challenges that occurred in a city of around 800,000 people. So we need to increase or to try to do the leak detection at night to avoid some noise problems, although it came another, which was security. But today we have 20 trained leak detection crew that we are proud of it, and both of us, we see them with a very interesting KPIs and levels. Where we started the program, we were around 150 to 200 leaks detected per month, and today we are over 1,000. So, and the percentage of non-visible is around 15%. So we are completely in the different situation that we were in the beginning, and the teams work independently and a very high level comparing with international standards. On the leak repair side, it was not only the part of the integration of the new materials, because we wanted to not to have re-incidents. We don't want to come back to the same leak. We want to be sure that the job is well done. So it was a question of quality on the materials and quality on the procedures. And we brought some equipments with different specs. It was based mainly on backhoes, the activities. We brought the mini excavators. We believe that they are more sensible and better and more efficient for small jobs. And that also brought some challenges in the famous marriage, but I think today we are all aligned, and we don't open a trench without using a saw cutting to guarantee that the asphalt is well reinstated in the later stage. And we don't fail on the basics like pipe sand bedding or a good compaction in layers, guaranteeing not future problem in terms of degradation of the asphalt when it's reinstated. So we are today doing around 1,000 repairs per month with these teams, and most of them have average of 4 repairs per day per team. So again, we are at the level of the good international KPIs for this activity. On the pressure management, it was our biggest challenge. The unknowns of the network oblige us to make a brutal effort when both parties were investing a lot of time and money. Just to say that 40% of the works that we developed on the ground, they were needed trial excavations to find what was the diameter of the pipe, what was the connection, what type of material pipe was there, to adjust the right fittings to make the right connections. And these took us some time, more than expected, and also we had some third-party disruptions that didn't allow us to get where we are. But today we are very near to the end, and we have more than 120 pressure zones established, which is more than 85% of the network, and we have 160 DMAs. These give us a high-level control on the pressure and the flows of the network, which allow us also to get great benefits in terms of losses. This control is monitored by more than 500 loggers installed on the ground that initially they were installed, as you can see in the picture, in the fire hydrants, and today they are in these beautiful pillar boxes that they have not been disrupted or vandalized so far, which is great news for Jamaica. And these allow us to have a daily control of the pressure and flow to allow in the first phase to understand what was the base of the problem, and today to do a management of the flows per the various sources of water that Kingston has. Finally, our dearest son, which is the social challenging areas, where also we all invested a lot. It has been very challenging just in the initial phase to understand what was the size of it, and finally, how to address the problem. We overcame with a solution that proves to be efficient. We have implemented the right commercial losses strategies, and we have seen the results. We worked in more than 40 communities where we started by talking with the stakeholders, with the leaders, we request their attention and approval to work in these areas. We intervened with a strategy that we both decided, and we have implemented more than 10,000 individual meters in each one of these SCAs. These allow us to bring, in terms of losses, from over 60% to around 40% in these areas. These areas are closed and we can monitor them, so we know exactly what's going on inside of each one of them in terms of SIV, system input volume, revenue water, and finally the NRW. Finally, the key for the success was basically to have a powerful dashboard that allow us to have first identify what are the relevant KPIs to apply in this project. Second, to define which are the targets to establish for each one of them, and then monitor them in a weekly and monthly basis. This Excel tool was discussed from beginning to the end with the client, with the partner, and together we managed to make a monthly evaluation with these colors green and red, and when the red lights appear in the dashboard that you see, the picture that you see on the right, we immediately sit and discuss how to overcome the problem, and if it's leak detection, we will reinforce the techniques, or we'll try to have more and better efficient teams, or if it's a backlog on the leaks, we will also reinforce and put more teams on the ground and try to tackle if it's more on the mains or on the service connections that we are late. And finally, what are the results also on the SCAs, on the commercial losses KPIs. For the COVID, that is pretty recent, and that is a subject that is on everybody's head, we sat together and we discussed together how to tackle it. So we went by the key activities and we defined what were the essential and non-essential activities to guarantee the proper service of NWC and the final objective of NWC, which is distribute water. And then, therefore, we define, with this strategy, we identify the activities that we don't want to stop and the ones that we could stop to avoid contamination. We reach an agreement, and these allow us to reduce the risks, continuing to perform the job to guarantee that at the end of the day, the key aspect of the COVID, which is to wash our hands, it's possible with a proper hours of service of the network and the proper pressure. On the COVID side, we also distribute a contingency plan, and we build a contingency plan with NWC to allow us to have the proper measures in place to guarantee the service. Here's just an example of that we are studying the network, and the loggers allow us to have these. And this is an example of one of the areas where we see the past before COVID, the blue chart, and the orange chart where is post or during COVID. And you can see clearly that, just to mention, that increase of the night flow was visible, or more 15% overall before and after in a period of 1 month. And also that there is a delay of the usage of water with a peak, a higher peak of consumption on that point. These are just considerations because we have the data, we can study and we can identify what's going on in the network and take rapid measures for that. On the overall, you can see a phase of the network where we can see clearly that the system input volume on the initial stage, when we started to control the pressure and the network of the system, where we have relevant pressure zones installed, we came from a service of a supply of 220,000 cubic meters, and currently the project is quite stable, around 160,000 cubic meters. So this drop was possible by multiple progress and a continuous work on the pressure zones, also a good implementation on the social challenging areas, and a combined effort on the leak detection and leak repairs, which allow us to bring this drop in overall system. On the other side, the revenue also increased, and it was implemented from the part of the client around 50,000 meters in the initial stage of the project. That gave us immediately a boost from the initial volume that was around 70,000 cubic meters to jump to a level of 80,000. And from the project activities, we also see a good improvement with more than 7,000 cubic meters of increase on the revenue on this period that is represented here in this graph. This is translated in savings estimated of over or around $8 million per year today from the starting point to today's point. This compared to the 4.5 million that NWC was estimating at the beginning, allow us to understand that this is a project that it will be paid by himself in almost in the duration of the project. And if the continuity and the sustainability are in place, NWC can have great results in a period of 10 years with the savings on this order per year. Finally, the story of this project. So we started the implementation, the GIS and the challenges of the network make us the increase of pressure and the increase of hours of supply that make us climb the mountain. And from that point, it has been dropping. It has been fantastic 3 years of hard work and fights. But as Mark said, the judge, the jury has been a good supporter of the program, allowed always to us in our differences to find common aspects and allow us to bring the curve down. We are around 75,000 when the objective is 50,000 cubic meters. The drop was huge from around 130,000 cubic meters. We still have a way to go. But the results so far prove that this methodology is efficient. This project brought great results to Kingston and to Jamaica. Just to the last slide to show that in parallel with NRW Works, we have also done some initial 19 SCADA sites that allow to have a control of the system and monitor them at distance, troubleshooting them also. This allows NWC to reduce the staff, to have mobile teams instead of fixed teams in each one of these locations that are seen in the map on the top right-hand corner, and allows also further implementations. We just finalized more 5 sites that are under commissioning. And this has been also a good partnership to bring NWC to another level in terms of control, management, and operation of his huge network. Finally, it is thank you, muchas gracias, obrigado, that we have also indirect benefits. We have common goals that we did, because during these challenges, we found out that the network was not up to standards, and we solved the problem together. And this is why that gentleman was there, was to thank, because we managed to, after some time, to give back water to his facility. And this is just a thank you from the Jamaica population to me and NWC in this partnership of more than 4 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alvaro. And that concludes the first part of this webinar. We're going now to start the commentaries on the commentary part, and we will have several speakers in that second part as well. And we will start with Sergio Campos, the Water and Sanitation Division Chief at the Inter-American Development Bank. Sergio, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Corinne, and good morning, everybody. We're very grateful to have more than 250 participants in the seminar. I hope that you guys are finding the presentations very useful. I did indeed find them excellent. Thank you very much, Mark, Jermaine, and Alvaro for wonderful presentations. In the bank, for the most part, our projects yield good results. Lots of lessons learned. Some of them have problems, of course. And an important number of projects are good stories. And this is one of those. Non-revenue water in water and sanitation in the Caribbean is a success story. And we have the privilege to have non-revenue water, NWC, as one of our champions in this regard. I would like to highlight my comments in 3 points. First, the importance of tackling non-revenue water. Second, the conditions that are required for this to be a success story. And third, the role of the innovation. In regards to the importance of tackling non-revenue water, the SDGs, water and sanitation, if we want to make progress in terms of health, education, poverty, gender, we have to tackle water and sanitation. For the SDGs, all the SDGs, water is essential, central. If we don't achieve them, we won't achieve the rest. So it is part of a developmental agenda. Unfortunately, in Latin America and in the Caribbean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. The 2 poorest quintiles in Latin America, the poorest people, 70% of them don't have access to safe water. 85% don't have access to adequate sanitation. And when you look at the Caribbean, on average, the non-revenue water lost is approximately 40 to 50%. And we believe it's higher because as we've seen in the Bahamas and in Jamaica and in other places, they used to believe that it was X. Once we had a baseline, it was the amount was larger. So our infrastructure is in bad condition. Our governance is not adequate. So if we want to address non-revenue water and we want to achieve the SDGs, it is important to highlight the non-revenue water. Non-revenue waters today, addressing non-revenue water today is the no-brainer. There are proven cases in which bringing technology, you can reduce, as Alvaro was showing up, in 3 years, almost 30% of the non-revenue water could be reduced. What's the difference between the approach that we had 17 or 15 years ago to the approach that we have today? Technology. Technology that has evolved, that is enabling us to achieve these results in a short period of time. I remember working with NWC 15 years ago, and they were facing the decision to provide access to water to one town, and they were looking at reducing an account on water or building another system. It was so uncertain to be able to reduce an accounted for water that they couldn't afford to bet on that because people needed water. So they ended up building some outside systems. But today, that uncertainty doesn't exist anymore. I mean, we've proven in many cases that this is feasible. And that brings me to the second point. What is needed to achieve this? First, commitment of the government, commitment of the upper management, a stable management at the top, committed to this new technology, this new approach, this new holistic approach that needs to be holistic, that is not so different from what we used to know in the past, but that now incorporates technology. That's number one. Number second, you need a business model to address this. In the Caribbean, in the Bahamas, which was the pioneer project that we did in non-revenue water, MIA was actually part of the ecosystem that developed. It was not a co-management. It was an output-based contract in which most of the burden was placed in the provider, in this case in MIA. And then one of the lessons learned is that they did the job. They actually reduced approximately 50% of non-revenue water in 3 or 4 years, or 3 or 4 years. But the people from the water authority were not trained. And then it was difficult to transfer the technology. That's why in the Bahamas, we evolved to a co-management in which Mark has Jermaine and a team assembled that it's co-managing the system. So the learnings are gained as you go, and both benefit from the results. In another utility in the Caribbean, we try doing a task force within the public utility so that task force can bring the technology and implement some of the trenchless technologies or smart technology. It takes them too long to learn what's out there, to find out what's good or what's bad, and to bring them. So, but anyway, there are 3 different models, not so different at the end. I mean, maybe from the first to the third, they have differences. But you need a business model, you need a technology, and you need a mechanism by which you can address and measure the results. A baseline is important. So you need a commitment of the management, you need a good business model, you need a good baseline. A good baseline, because that's going to be able to tell you where do you need to fix the leaks, and then depending on the technology, how well you did and whether you can replicate those technologies or not. You don't have to wait to have the baseline, and you don't have to wait to have crafted the business model before you can address high impact works. There are places in which you know that by replacing a main or by addressing some issue, you can have some early gains. So that's the third component. And most importantly, it's training the people and the employees with the technologies that are needed. You know? So I think that those are the common things that need to be in place, that Alvaro and Jermaine and Mark highlighted throughout. But I thought it was very important to highlight them too. Now, under the COVID, it's become more relevant, the importance of water and sanitation and hand washing. And it's been seen also in the developmental world that you cannot take it for granted to have water, safe water, and to have soap. So the COVID will pass, hopefully sooner rather than later, but these problems will remain. And I guess this is a call to action to most of the utilities in the Caribbean and in some other places to don't be afraid and to tackle this problem in the similar way that NWC has done. A lot of work remains to be done, but if you don't start now, later on, it's going to be more complicated. Thank you very much, everybody, for showing us the results, the processes, the intricacies, and then I'll pass the word to Corinne. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sergio. Now I will continue with Joe Parker from the International Water Association. Joe is a chartered civil engineer, has worked in the water industry for over 40 years. She currently works as an independent consultant, specializing in the management of water mains, and is recognized internationally as an expert in this field. She's a fellow of the Institution of Civil Engineers and the Institute of Water and the Chartered Institute of Water and Environmental Management. Joe, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and I would like to thank the IDB particularly for inviting me to participate in this webinar. It's been really brilliant to hear the results of this project, particularly as I was involved in the early stages, looking at the methods that the repair teams used and training them in some improved approaches, which Alvaro, for instance, and Jermaine covered, and which have made such a difference. But I think one of the best things about this, from my point of view as a member of the management committee of the water loss specialist group of the International Water Association, is that it's a perfect example of using the approach which the IWA recommends. And we call that the 4-pillar approach. So for the physical losses, the NWC looked at how could they introduce active leakage control, and introduce DMAs, trained leakage technicians to find the leaks rather than just waiting for visible leakage to appear. And I've mentioned how they looked at the quality of the repairs, which was very important, and introduced all sorts of new equipment and techniques. we also heard about how they covered pressure management and introduced that across much of Kingston. And then finally, they looked at the whole management of the assets. Things like the information that existed, getting that accurate and up to date. And little things, when I went out, there were piles of PVC pipes out in the sunlight, and UV light degrades PVC. They introduced better storage, new materials, and transformed how they managed their pipes. But it's important you don't just look at physical losses, because losses can occur on the commercial side. And so they looked at their meters, replacing them where necessary. They looked at collecting the meter reading information. They looked at all the data that they used to calculate their losses. And they also tackled the problem, which was particularly difficult in these socially challenging areas, of water theft. So they had the 4 pillars of physical losses and 4 pillars of commercial losses. And over again, I've worked in a lot of different countries all over the world, and you hear water utility personnel saying, well, we can't get on top of leakage because our pipes are all too old, they break too often. Well, the NWC had pipes that were as old as plenty of other countries. We've heard how they had a huge variety of materials, and they haven't gone for wholesale replacement. What they have done is going for really good, thorough, detailed management of their distribution network to get on top of what water is being lost where. And I think this is a fantastic example. I hope it will be used to educate people in a lot of different countries, not just in the Caribbean. So I'm hoping that Mark and his team will perhaps present similar webinars to other audiences. And I wish them all the very best for the future, because they've done a fantastic job. Well done. Have I stunned you all by finishing in under time?
Joe, thank you very much for your intervention. And we're going to finalize this webinar with Mark Barker, who is the founder and CEO of WEX Global. He's more than 30 years experience in international B2B media, marketing, and public relations. In 2006, to pursue his passion for preserving the sustainability of the planet, he founded WEX Global, a summit for the international water sector, which has now been held in Europe, the Middle East, as well as Africa. So Mark Barker, Mark, go ahead. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. And thank you, first of all, to Maya, to NWC, and to IDB for inviting me to speak today. A big hello in particular to Mark Barnett and his team at NWC. Congratulations on the award. Mark took part in WEX Global back in 2018, and therefore it's a great pleasure for me to be able to return the compliment today and to come and talk to you about international recognition for this groundbreaking project, which, as we've heard from Joe at IWA, has produced some fantastic results. I'm here to tell you a little bit about the WEX Awards and why indeed NWC was chosen as a winner. And if my technical competence allows, I'm going to show you just a few slides to illustrate. WEX Global is an international summit which has been running for the last 15 years. We welcome senior level people from the international water sector to discuss many critical issues which relate to water, energy and the circular economy. Our objective is to promote innovative ideas which contribute to meeting global challenges such as water scarcity, climate change, urbanization, and of course, non-revenue water. An important part of the event are the WEX Global Innovation Awards. They're given in 10 different countries. Categories and entries are assessed by a panel of international water experts, and the winners announced at our annual gala dinner, which this year was held at the Oceanographic in Valencia. The awards themselves are truly international, and the winners this year included companies active in Dubai, the USA, the UK, Ireland, Jamaica, Uganda, Saudi Arabia, Spain, and Portugal. Their award-winning work spanned areas ranging from solar desalination to water reclamation, non-revenue water, and the transformation of seawater into valuable resources. This year, I was delighted that the panel were able to give the award for innovation in infrastructure to the NRW Reduction and Co-Management Programme, jointly run by NWC and Maya and funded by IDB. The judges commented that entries were an extremely high level across the board, but sustainability was a key consideration, which of course is what society really expects from the leading companies in the water sector. The NRW program from Jamaica was finally chosen from a shortlist which included an entry from Uzbekistan by DuPont and one from the UAE by Utico. The judges were impressed by the highly innovative business model, which included performance-based fees within a co-management program. This is something that Sergio's talked about this afternoon, the importance of having a fantastic business model. The judges said that in this case, it required an unusually high degree of collaboration to build the necessary trust between the stakeholders for this to be effective. In addition to the deployment of the innovative technologies and maintenance practices, which we've heard something this afternoon, the judges also noted the key contribution to knowledge transfer, to capacity building, sustainability, and resilience, which was supported by the training regime that ensured that some 97% of the participants are Jamaican. This will mean that the skills and knowledge, as we've heard, necessary to ensure continual improvement in NRW will stay embedded within the utility long after Maya's job is concluded. I'd like to congratulate the IDB for their unstinting commitment to the programme and to welcome their foresight in recognising that this programme should serve as a benchmark of best practice in NRW across the Caribbean region. And we look forward to seeing the results of this being replicated in future IDB projects, which dramatically reduce NRW and thus impact widely on the quality of life and economic prosperity of the citizens of the region. And I just missed out one slide there, which is of Gonzalo and Noam from Maya receiving the award at the ceremony in Valencia. So in conclusion, congratulations to NWC, to Maya and to IDB from WEX Global. We wish you all the best in your future endeavours to reduce water loss and to widen the social impacts of this fantastic programme. We hope to see some of you at some of our next summits, which are taking place in Spain next year from the 1st to the 3rd of March. Thank you very much indeed.
To all the speakers and I will ask now Mark Barnett from NWC to provide a few closing remarks before we go to the question and answer session.
Thank you, Corinne. I just want to preface my closing remarks by just giving recognition to one of our guests, Ajay Kumar Vijayan, who was one of the initial conceptualizers and who worked on the contractual arrangement between NWC and MEA. Ajay is no longer with the NWC, but I'm sure that experience he would have taken with him up north in Canada. But one of the other things that I really think is important and which we have not mentioned in any great detail, NRW activities in whatever form that we're going to execute them must have the political support. And I can tell you when we started at NWC, because it is not, so to speak, one of those activities that allow for ribbon cutting. It is something that is happening on the ground. You rarely don't see anything. You only see people moving about, digging up the place, disrupting services. It comes with its own set of headaches and usually doesn't sit well within the political realm. But the overall impact is a reduction in capital expenditure in the long run, which serves any country well in terms of their overall expenditure. We are happy to say that we eventually, through our whole PR and even my own promotion of the activities, was able to get that level of buy-in. And I can tell you now in Jamaica, NRW is on the lips of most, if not all, our political figures. And that is a plus, including our own Ministry of Finance, which seems to like what we're doing. But some of the key takeaways, you know, we understand the history to which NWC had embarked on NRW. We recognize and we have learned our lessons from those projects. They weren't as successful and sustainable as we would have hoped. And again, the modality did not allow for that type of transfer of knowledge that we would have loved. Importantly, when you embark on a program, an NRW program, you need to have the financing arrangement in place. You need to have that long-term financing. While we push to have an NRW activity within 5 years, it's a short period of time. I will be the first to admit. But the situation was so urgent that we have to put pressure both on ourselves and on the partner to ensure that we get quick gains to demonstrate to our government and others that this is an activity that needs to be pursued. And so we recognize and we thank the IDB for partnering with us in providing that finance, albeit government guaranteed support. But, you know, we must have somebody who initially is prepared to put the funds up before we can work out the finer details. The innovative approach is, I'm not sure if there's any similar project elsewhere in the world. And so we here in Jamaica like to be seen as innovative and do things different. And we don't mind being world leaders in demonstrating to others that despite the risk, despite all the challenges, we were able to overcome and pursue a contractual arrangement which is hard to replicate. It's not easy. We will be the first to admit. We have learned our lessons. We would want to make adjustments going forward, but in essence, it has demonstrated an effective way of transferring knowledge to our staff and allow for sustainability in local management of our overall network. Again, NRW goes without saying, and for those who may be thinking of doing NRW and titivating, if you will, at the edges, trying to decide whether or not you should do or should not do, it is a no-brainer. If you're producing water that is not being consumed by your population or by your commercial entities, it obviously means that your water is going somewhere that you're not accounting for. You need to embark on an NRW program. And I know within the Caribbean, we are beset with losses in our network. And so I, from a point of view of the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association president, must implore our Caribbean and regional neighbors to give serious consideration and take bold and strident decisions to ensure that we embark on NRW activities. It is, as I said, not one that gives our political directorate the level of focus and attention that they can use otherwise, but it is something that is going to remain a sustainable approach to serving and provide access to potable water for our citizens in concert with, you know, the Sustainable Development Goal number 6. Again, without the challenges and without overcoming those challenges, we here at NWC, and of course with MEA, an international company in this area, would not be able to be recognized by AWEX in 2020. Unfortunately, Mark, I wasn't able to attend. I know I got the invitation, but it was about having a 50th birthday rather than visiting Spain. So I chose to have that celebration just before COVID broke out here. Again, we are very happy at NWC to have been embarked on this program. We have seen the result. We recognize the challenges we endure, and I will tell you, it's about stick-to-itiveness, it's about cooperation between partners, it's about not necessarily wanting to win everything on one side, but how do you make compromises in the benefit of moving forward and in the execution of contract. Because again, the success of contracts, irrespective of the type of contracting arrangement, always boil down to the type of relationship that is developed. And you usually have successful contracts when you have amicable and purposeful and coordinated and complementary relationships in execution. My final word, and this is a word from CWWA, my regional colleagues, NRW is the way to go. And I would just want to emphasize that, because too often what we do is invest in infrastructure, new treatment plants, etc. But we ignore to recognize that the people still don't get the water after we implement those new facilities. The only solution to solve that problem is a concerted effort to a long-term NRW program that is going to allow for your people to have the level of access, level of reliable service, and improve standard of living right across the region. I want to thank you all for joining us. We here at NWC are very happy to share our experience with you. We are open for any comments, and at the end of this webinar, even in the days to come, we like to share what we would have learned, and we are very open to that type of situation. I thank you. Back to you, Corinne.
Thank you so much, Mark, for those closing remarks. And I take the opportunity to thank, all the speakers as well as the commentators for your very insightful participation and intervention. We have about 7 minutes now for question and answers. So I'll go directly to those. Those that are not answered today, we will answer them in writing after the webinar. So I will start with you, Mark. Someone is asking, did you have a special team designated only to NRW, or was it done by your staff in conjunction with their normal duties?
So just to quickly, what we have done, we made some organizational changes. We try to ensure that we have staff who have the best temperament, the right attitude to work within the program initially. However, we recognize that throughout an organization, you couldn't just move everybody all around. So we adjust our organizational structure within the project area to allow for those staff to be working on the program and for the knowledge transfer to occur. So it wasn't a case where they would have been doing their normal duties. No, they were focusing on NRW activities throughout the period. And so much so now, the activities become part and parcel of how we operate on a daily basis within Kingston and St. Andrew.
Thank you, Mark. I have a question now for the IDB. do you think this co-management program can be implemented in any other country in the Caribbean? And if so, what type do you recommend, co-management or turnkey? I don't know if Sergio would like to respond to.
Thank you, Corinne. Yes, no, definitely. I have many times mentioned and said that many of the things, or many of the good things that we can export from the Caribbean to not only Latin America, but to the rest of the world, is this approach to non-revenue water management. But in particularly, can be relevant for the Caribbean, a region in which water is essential, where most of the sources of water have to be combined between wells and surface water, and in many cases where only wells are the only solution, with very high cost of energy and pumping and so on and so forth. So losing a large amount of waters shouldn't be acceptable. The model can take three forms, as mentioned, that we've proven to work. It's a turnkey project, or an output-based project, like the one we had in Bahamas. A co-management, which is the one that we recommend the most, because as many of the speakers and commentators mentioned, it's a way of bringing the knowledge and the transfer on building capacity within the public utility. But we've also done in Barbados, actually, created a unit, a task force, and they brought the technology, trenchless technology, smart meters, and so on and so forth. So the business model can work depending on the approach that you take. Certain things have to be addressed and put in place, but bringing technology to non-revenue water works. And as Mark mentioned, I mean, it needs to be addressed, and this is the way to address it. So yes, it can be implemented particularly in most of the countries in the Caribbean. There are, within those three examples that we've had, there can be variations that can be implemented. We would just need to have a tailor-made approach.
Thank you, Sergio. Another question for Mark, I believe, or Jermaine. Was the area universally metered before the project?
So we would say we have a universal metered program. That's the standard approach for us here in Jamaica. However, we did not have all customers within the area metered at the time, but we would say we were probably about 85–90% metered throughout the network.
Thank you, Mark. And that would be the last question now. Is Jamaica suffering from a drought as so many other islands, and how is that affecting your operations in this program, if at all?
You know, I like to refer to experience we had in 2018, where we had a real dry period. And I tell you, we were able to manage our network without any major dislocation to our customers. And we believe the ability to do that was really as a result of the NRW that we were undertaking. But yes, we're going through a dry period now. And similar to what other Caribbean islands and within the region, I would say we're not as bad as we were last year in terms of the dry period. But yes, we would have seen reduction in system input volume. But that's not a case to say the system input volume is at the level beyond where every individual can be served. But yes, the dry period is a problem for us. But you know, the point of an NRW in this instance is to tackle that very much situation, because we know dry times are getting longer and those are the new norm. So it makes even more the case for us to be more water efficient in our distribution system. And hence even more reason why NRW program of this nature, and even more reason why we should replicate these activities in other parts of Jamaica, and as I've indicated before, other parts of the region, or Caribbean region, that is.
Thank you, Mark, and that will conclude this webinar. Unfortunately, we cannot answer all those questions, but we will do it in writing separately afterwards. I would like to thank all the speakers, all the commentators, and all the participants as well, who are many today and who asked many questions as well. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.